Hi, I'm Wayne Hoffman, president of Idaho Freedom Foundation. Yet another round of debate, synopsis, and recap that I want to share with you. This one's a little different, and it's sort of outside the Idaho Freedom Foundation's wheelhouse. It's on gay marriage, totally outside our wheelhouse. But I think there's an important detail in here that no one else has really talked about, so I wanted to grab this video and tell you a little bit more about what it is we're seeing here. So here we go.
All right, the next question is for Congressman Labrador from Betsy Russell.
Congressman Labrador, you and your opponents in your campaign messaging have been strongly opposed to same-sex marriage. Yet same-sex marriage is legal in Idaho right now. And according to the State Vital Statistics Bureau, more than 1,000 Idaho couples, same-sex couples, had legally married in Idaho through the end of 2016. And that's not counting any who then got married in 2017 or now in 2018. In your opposition to same-sex marriage, would you want to annul all those marriages of those existing Idaho couples?
I would not, and I don't think the Constitution would allow that, but I would get rid of same-sex marriage in the state of Idaho. The reality is that the state constitution is against same-sex marriage. The people of Idaho decided many years ago that they wanted traditional marriage to be protected in the state. My job as the governor of the state of Idaho will be to protect not just the U.S. Constitution, but the state constitution. The second thing is that I think marriage is an issue that should be decided by the states, not by the U.S. Supreme Court. And
It sure would be nice if a candidate running for governor would talk about just getting government out of the marriage business altogether. I understand this debate that's taking place right now, but it's kind of strange to me that there isn't a much more detailed conversation about why, and it's a very modern concept, by the way, that government should be in the middle playing this role of engaging in marriages where you don't really need the government involved.
you keep saying that the same-sex marriage is legal. Well, it's only legal because of a 5-4 decision where 5 justices decided what the law of the United States is going to be. That's not the way the United States is supposed to work. The United States is supposed to work through its legislatures and through its governors.
But that is how the Supreme Court works. There have been plenty of 5-4 decisions that have changed the course of history.
And you can overturn those decisions. A 5-4 decision can also be overturned, and I think that we will look for the opportunity to overturn that decision. Now, if the people of Idaho have changed their minds about same-sex marriage, I think they should be the ones who should determine it, not justices in Washington, D.C. And I think the people of Idaho agree with me on that.
But just to follow up, if you want to end same-sex marriage in Idaho, but you do not want to annul the existing same-sex marriages, how would you do that? Would you grandfather some in, not allow any additional ones in the future?
Well, that happens all the time when some...
I don't know why that's a very confusing thing for her.
Is whatever the law is, if the law has changed, you don't annul it for the people who have taken advantage of it. You annul it, you just prevent it in the future. The people of Idaho have made it their choice pretty clear on same-sex marriage, and I think that my job as the governor of the state of Idaho will be to defend it, to defend the state constitution, and to look for ways. You have a president of the United States that has already picked one conservative Supreme Court justice, and I think he will continue to pick. He will have at least 1 or 2 other picks in the next few years. We will have an opportunity to litigate this again, and I think what the Supreme Court should do is send it back to the states, and then we can have a discussion at the state level what we want to do regarding same-sex marriage.
It's a reasonable suggestion to say that the federal government shouldn't be involved in the marriage issue. It's also a reasonable suggestion to say that the government, even the state government, even the city or county government shouldn't be involved in marriage either.
Little, the same question. You've stated opposition to same-sex marriage. Would you annul those, the marriages of those 2,000 plus Idahoans who already have legal same-sex marriages in this state?
I voted for the languages in the Idaho Constitution.
Here's the reason I wanted to share this video with you. I'm a libertarian, so I don't really have a lot of desire to see the government being involved in the marriage issue. Back in 2004, when the legislature was first presented with the idea of amending the state constitution to define marriage as between a man and a woman, the key vote, I was there, the key vote against the marriage amendment was a guy who was a state senator by the name of Brad Little. And Brad Little at the time said there's no reason to have language in the state constitution where we're defining marriages between a man and a woman. His argument was there's no way in the world that the Supreme Court was going to make that distinction and say that same-sex marriage is legal in Idaho. And here we are. So to complete the history for you, Brad Little opposed a marriage amendment in the state constitution. His recent decision to support marriage amendment and to lead out with marriage as being between a man and a woman is a creation of this race for governor. That's an important detail if that's something that's important to you as a voter. Again, not terribly important to me, not terribly important to Idaho Freedom Foundation as an organization. What is important is that you know the entire history of affairs. And the whole history is that Brad Little opposed defining marriage as being between a man and a woman in the state constitution in 2004 when he was a state senator. And his recent opposition to same-sex marriage coincides with his race for governor. Whether you support that or not, that's just a fact.
And no, I wouldn't annul it. These things need to be done collectively because it creates all kinds of problems for people, contracts, visitation rights, etc. That needs to be done holistically, and frankly needs to be done at the federal level because it's one of those instances where the U.S. Constitution trumps over the top of the Idaho Constitution. I don't like it, but that's the oath that you swear to uphold when you take one of these jobs.
I don't think his understanding of the relationship between the state constitution and the U.S. Constitution is accurate. Again, that's not a commentary on marriage. That's just a commentary on the role of state governments versus the federal government, with the states being separate and equal sovereigns to the federal government. When the federal government engages in an area of governance that has nothing to do with what the defined powers of the federal government are, that's where the state powers kick in. Now, at that level, you can have a discussion about whether the state should ban or support marriage or any other policy that's not enumerated in the federal constitution. But his understanding of the issue is entirely 100% wrong.
Can I say something on that? That's completely
Briefly.
wrong. Until this decision, the Supreme Court did very little to determine the laws of marriage in the United States. They interfered every once in a while, but I think it's something that should be left up to the states and traditionally has been left up to the states.
Congress has also interfered in marriage. You remember that in the 1990s, there was legislation passed with regard to marriage and how it applies to individual states. And we have to be realistic and honest about what's happened in the past. The federal government has put its nose where it didn't belong, and when the outcome was convenient to us, we kind of said, all right, that's okay, and we let it go. Now the reverse is true, and we're sitting there going, oh, wait a minute, the federal government is overstepping its bounds. So Labrador is correct, mostly, with regard to the law and the way it's been carried out over the last many years.
Congressman Labrador, the Supreme Court did overturn, for example, bans on interracial marriage for all states.
Yeah, and that's why I say that sometimes it has done it, but I think in this case it should be left up to the states.
Dr. Alquist, the same question.
So I disagree with the decision from the Supreme Court. I believe the marriage is between a man and a woman, and I believe that the governor of a state, we should govern and protect family values and our traditional values that are being attacked on several issues. I think that the law of the land right now is there, and currently I do not see a viable path forward, but that may change, and if it does change and there's a chance for us to overturn it in Idaho, I would be all for that.
Okay.
Someone asked me the other day how you protect family values. And as an organization, again, that doesn't talk about gay marriage and abortion, they're not really in our wheelhouse, but family values, in my way of thinking, goes way beyond just how you define marriage or who should have kids and who shouldn't and who should be allowed to adopt and who shouldn't and so on. Really, if we are concerned about family values, we ought to be talking about other things, namely fiscal policy. Most of the bills that go through the Idaho legislature have nothing to do whatsoever with gay marriage or abortion or any of these other social issues. Most of them have to do with fiscal policy. How much money is being taken out of moms and dads' pockets or the pockets of individuals who are just trying to earn a living and maybe save a little bit of money for a car or a house or even some food. If we really care about families, if we're truly pro-family or pro-individual, what we should be talking about is how you reduce the tax burden, how you reduce the regulatory burden, the regulations that prevent a person who just wants to get a job as a cosmetologist or as a mechanic working on air conditioners or electricians installing dishwashers. Those are things that really, really impact people and can benefit people too if constructed wisely. The only purpose of shooting this video and talking about the gay marriage issue is only to call out the true facts, the total and complete picture relative to Brad Little's record. But beyond that, if you take away one other thing from this message, I hope you understand that there's much more to defending traditional family values, and that is talking about tax policy, regulatory policy, and all those things that we work on every single day to limit the size and scope and power of government. Thank you again for watching. If you want to learn more about where we stand on different issues, visit us at idahofreedom.org.